Spring Garden Township, Pennsylvania. A sprawling complex of brick buildings sits empty on a hillside. The state closed it down in 1987. But some nights, visitors hear voices. Pennhurst. For nearly 8 decades, they called it a hospital. But what happened inside those walls? That wasn't medicine. That was something else entirely. This is Night Shift Stories. Tonight, we're going somewhere the screams never really stopped. In 1908, Pennsylvania opened an institution for the feeble-minded and epileptic. That was the official name. The state thought they were solving a problem. By the time it closed in 1987, more than 10,000 people had passed through those doors. Most of them were children. And what they experienced there? That's documented fact. But here's where it gets strange. Decades after the last patient left, people are still hearing them, still feeling them. And sometimes, the marks don't wash off. Eastern Pennsylvania, 1908. The progressive era is in full swing. Reformers believe they can perfect society by separating out the unfit. They built Pennhurst on a hillside outside Philadelphia. The grounds were beautiful. Rolling lawns, brick dormitories, a self-sustaining farm. It looked like a college campus. The name was clinical, Eastern Pennsylvania State Institution for the Feeble-Minded and Epileptic. Behind that clinical name, a philosophy. These people were problems to be contained. Children with intellectual disabilities, adults with epilepsy, people with mental illness, physical deformities, anyone society didn't want to see. They sent them here to disappear. At its peak, Pennhurst held over 2,800 patients, nearly double its intended capacity. And the staff? Nowhere near enough to care for them properly. Residents were warehoused, not treated. Some were locked in rooms for days. Others wandered the grounds in soiled clothing because no one had time to help them. In 1968, a local television reporter named Bill Baldini did something no one expected. He got inside, and he brought cameras. His report, Suffer the Little Children, showed America something it didn't want to see. Naked patients rocking in corners, children sitting in their own waste, beds without mattresses. The footage was devastating. People across Pennsylvania saw children lying on bare floors, staring at nothing. Some hadn't been outside in years. The public was outraged. Politicians demanded answers. But the changes came slowly, if they came at all. Inside those walls, the suffering continued. In 1974, a class-action lawsuit changed everything. Terry Lee Halderman was a resident with intellectual disabilities. Her parents saw what was happening to their daughter, and they sued. The Halderman case exposed overcrowding so severe that patients slept in hallways. Understaffing so extreme that violence went unchecked. A complete absence of any real treatment programs. Witnesses testified about patients being beaten, isolated, left without basic care. The evidence was overwhelming. The court ruled Pennhurst violated basic constitutional rights. But the worst revelations came later. In 1981, Time magazine published an investigation. What they found inside Pennhurst? It read like a horror novel. Filth everywhere. Understaffing so severe that patients went days without bathing. Violence between residents that no one bothered to stop. And then, 1983, 9 Pennhurst employees were indicted on charges of patient abuse. 9 staff members, caught hurting the people they were supposed to protect. The charges were specific and sickening. Staff members were forcing patients in wheelchairs to fight each other. For entertainment, like dogfighting, but with disabled human beings. Think about that for a moment. Not a few bad apples over decades. 9 employees indicted at once for systematic abuse. The courts had seen enough. The Halderman ruling led to a consent decree. Pennsylvania would close Pennhurst and move residents to community settings. On December 9, 1987, the last residents left Pennhurst. The buildings fell silent. The locks were changed. And then, Pennsylvania walked away. For decades, the campus sat empty. Paint peeled, ceilings collapsed, trees grew through broken windows, and slowly people started to notice something strange. The first paranormal investigators arrived in the early 2000s. They came with cameras, audio recorders, EMF meters. They expected dust and silence. That's not what they found. EVP recordings, electronic voice phenomena, started capturing voices, whispers in empty rooms, words that weren't there when the recording was made, clear enough to understand. Go away. That's one of the phrases investigators report capturing. We're upset. And the one that stops people cold, I'll kill you. Some investigators dismiss EVP as audio artifacts, static that our brains interpret as words. But the patterns at Pennhurst, they respond to questions. It's not just audio. Investigators report physical contact, being shoved in empty rooms, scratches appearing on their skin, marks that weren't there when they entered the building. Here's what's interesting about that. The scratches often appear in threes, 3 parallel lines. The same pattern, visitor after visitor. A&E took notice. They filmed world's biggest ghost hunt, Pennhurst Asylum, the longest continuously filmed paranormal investigation in television history. 5 investigators were locked inside for 2 weeks straight. No breaks, no ask-eyed contact, just them, the equipment, and whatever was still in those buildings. The question that draws people to Pennhurst isn't whether ghosts are real. It's simpler than that. It's what happens to suffering when no one acknowledges it. For almost 80 years, children suffered here. They were forgotten by society, abandoned by families, left in the care of people who sometimes hurt them for fun. And when it ended, when the courts finally stepped in, no one held a memorial. No one said sorry. They just locked the doors and left. CNN recently covered Pennhurst as part of a larger story on dark tourism, people who travel specifically to sites of suffering and tragedy. Today, Pennhurst operates as a paranormal destination. You can book investigations that run until 2 a.m. Walk the same halls where patients once wandered. Listen for the voices yourself. It's controversial. Disability rights advocates have criticized the haunted asylum framing. They argue it exploits real suffering for entertainment, turns trauma into a theme park. And they have a point. The people who suffered here weren't characters in a ghost story. They were children, adults, human beings who deserved better. But here's another way to think about it. For decades, Pennhurst was invisible, tucked away on that hillside, out of sight, out of mind, society's dirty secret. Now, people come, they see the buildings, they learn the history, and maybe, just maybe, that matters. The Halderman v. Pennhurst case is still studied in law schools today. It helped establish that disabled Americans have constitutional rights to adequate care. If you want to understand what really happened here, not the ghost stories, but the history, the legal documents are public record. The court filings tell a story no EVP recording can match. Pennhurst hosts an annual Paracon and Oddities Expo. Ghost hunters, true crime enthusiasts, historians, all gathered in a place where the paranormal and the documented past collide, whether you believe in ghosts or not. There's something here that demands attention. 10,000 people passed through Pennhurst. Most of them had no voice, no advocate, no one to remember them. Maybe that's what the investigators are really hearing. Not supernatural voices from beyond. Maybe it's the echo of people who were never properly listened to while they were alive. The EVP recordings continue. Go away. We're upset. Messages that, taken at face value, make perfect sense for people who were never allowed to leave. I'll kill you. That one's harder to explain away, unless you consider what was done to them. What they might have wanted to do in return, if they'd ever had the chance. If this story resonates with you, if you want to hear more about places where history and the unexplained intersect, hit subscribe. We dig into these stories every week. But remember, the horror at Pennhurst wasn't supernatural. It was bureaucratic. Understaffed wards, underfunded programs, a society that looked away. The ghosts, if they exist, are victims of something far more terrifying than any specter. They're victims of human indifference on a systemic scale. The buildings still stand, the tours still run, and every night, new investigators walk those halls with their recorders, asking questions into the darkness. Sometimes they say, something answers. Whether it's a trick of acoustics, a pattern in the static, or something else entirely, that's for you to decide. Pennhurst closed in 1987. The suffering ended, at least on paper. But some places hold on to pain the way stone holds on to cold. 10,000 souls passed through these doors. Most were never seen again by the families who left them here. And now, decades later, visitors report hearing them still. Go away. We're upset. I'll kill you. Maybe they're just echoes in old recordings. Or maybe after all those years of being silenced, they finally found a way to speak. This has been Night Shift Stories. Stay awake out there.